You think your instinct to survive is your greatest ally. Yet Schopenhauer saw this will to live not as nobility, but as a relentless tyrant, an irrational force that drives desire, suffering, and disappointment in endless cycles. Every breath you fight to keep becomes another opportunity for hope to bloom and then wither. You chase fleeting pleasures to soothe the ache of existence, only to awaken again to the same thirst. In this perpetual striving, life's very impulse to persist becomes the engine of misery. Schopenhauer's bleak insight was that the will to live is not a gift, but a problem to be solved. It cannot be crushed by force. After all, you cannot will what you will, but it can be transcended. His cure lies in turning away from ceaseless desire and toward practices that quiet the will. Aesthetic contemplation, compassion, renunciation, and ascetic discipline. Only by loosening the will's grip can you step off its treadmill of suffering and glimpse a deeper peace. In the reflections ahead, we'll explore 10 critical ways the will to live is destroying you, and Schopenhauer's radical prescriptions to weaken its hold. Because the most vital struggle is not to live at all costs, but to live well, or perhaps to live beyond the endless craving that makes living unbearable. The will to live is an irrational force. At the heart of Schopenhauer's bleak diagnosis lies a brutal truth. Your very will to live is not guided by reason or purpose, but by a blind, ceaseless force that cares nothing for your happiness. This will is an ancient churning current beneath your consciousness, a primordial drive that demands continuation at any cost. You assume survival instinct is your ally, yet Schopenhauer shows us it is your master. Indifferent to logic, ethics, or desire for peace, reason sits astride the will like a passenger, able to name the journey but unable to steer. You plan, you strategize, you set goals, yet the will drags you ever forward, regardless of consequence. It ensnares you in cravings you never consciously chose, for prestige, affection, distraction. Even when you declare enough, the will surges on, whispering that tomorrow's satisfactions will finally still its roar. You might still seek to alleviate needless harm, but you also recognize that pain can distill profound insight. You learn that suffering reveals the fissures in your will, where you have deceived yourself, where you have clung too fiercely, where you have denied reality. By accepting suffering as the universal condition, you step off the reactive treadmill of fleeing discomfort. You can meet pain with dignity, seeing it as an echo of the will's demand rather than a personal failing. This doesn't magnify suffering, it transforms its meaning. It becomes the terrain upon which you can cultivate compassion for yourself and for others, because you know that every person is fellow traveler on the same path of inevitable suffering. Deny the will through aesthetic contemplation. If the will to live is your tormentor, Schopenhauer prescribed a radical respite, aesthetic contemplation. In moments of pure, disinterested perception, when you lose yourself in a work of art, music, or the beauty of nature, the will's demands fall silent. You become a spectator, not an actor, and for that fleeting moment, pain retreats. Aesthetic experience is not mere pleasure. It is a denial of the will. You do not crave the beauty, you simply perceive it. You escape the grasp of desire by surrendering to the object of contemplation. Whether observing the sublime curves of a sculpture, listening to the intricate harmony of a concerto, or watching sunlight dance on water, you adopt a vantage point beyond want. In this state, self-conscious striving dissolves. You are not thinking, how can I possess this beauty? How can I replicate this feeling? You are only being. The will's voice, urging you toward more, better, next, recedes into the background. Pain persists, but it no longer commands your attention. To practice aesthetic denial of the will, cultivate moments of deep focus on a single work or scene. Turn off the internal commentary. Let your senses absorb detail. The curve of a line, the subtle shift in color, the tension in each note. Allow yourself to dwell in wonder. The effect is transformative. You train the mind to stand apart from the will's ceaseless demands and rest in a realm where desire does not apply. These pockets of release do not cure suffering permanently, but they offer proof that the will's tyranny can be interrupted. They provide a template for deeper renunciations. reminding you that aspects of your being thrive not in acquisition, but in pure, disinterested awareness. And in these silent reveries, you glimpse the possibility of a life less dominated by the will, and therefore less defined by suffering. Embrace resignation to quiet the inner tyrant. Schopenhauer taught that resignation is not defeat, but a strategic retreat from the unrelenting demands of the will. Your inner tyrant, the will to live, drives you to clutch, to crave, to struggle endlessly. Resignation is the act of laying down arms. You acknowledge that some desires are insatiable, and you cease the pointless battle against life's condition. This doesn't mean you stop living, it means you stop pursuing life as though you will extract ultimate satisfaction from it. To practice resignation, first notice where your will's demands are fiercest. The unending need to be recognized, to achieve, to possess. Pause and say inwardly, I resign from this quest. Allow the tension in your body to soften. Let the frantic narrative in your mind slow. Instead of chasing tomorrow's promise, rest in today's reality. Resignation turns energy from clawing at the future into being in the present. Next, cultivate acceptance of life's givens, aging, loss, uncertainty. When you embrace these as inevitable, the will's protests lose meaning. Grief still arrives, but without the added torment of, why is this happening to me? You greet pain with the calm of one who has consented to dance with sorrow, knowing it is life's unalterable partner. Resignation is not passivity. It is an empowered choice to stop feeding the will's ceaseless appetite. Freed from its tyrannical demands, you find mental space for creativity, peace, and compassion. The inner tyrant may still speak, but it no longer dictates your every move. You become the dignified witness of your own experience, unshaken by the fractious voice of desire. Compassion, the antidote to selfish striving. Schopenhauer crowned compassion as the highest moral force, the recognition that another's suffering is not separate from your own. Selfish striving, driven by the will to live, fixates on personal gain, status, comfort, pleasure, often trampling others and intensifying isolation. Compassion redirects this energy outward, transforming self-centered craving into shared understanding and solidarity. To practice compassion, start by observing your responses to others' pain. When a colleague falters, does your mind judge or empathize? When news of distant suffering emerges, do you scroll past or pause in concern? Each moment of genuine connection weakens the will's drive to dominate. In extending kindness, offering help, listening without agenda, you dissolve the barriers of ego that make you a prisoner of your own desire. Compassion also heals your own wounds. By comforting another, you remind yourself of your common humanity. You discover that suffering is universal, not a punishment meted out to you alone. This realization shrinks the will's grip. You see that your pain does not isolate you, but binds you to the tapestry of life. Cultivate daily gestures of empathy. A patient word to someone in distress, a small act of service to a stranger, an understanding gaze for a friend. These acts are not mere niceties. They are revolts against the tyranny of the will, affirming that connection and care are more potent than craving and consumption. Solitude as refuge from the will's noise. In the clamor of desire and distraction, solitude offers a sanctuary where the will's roar can subside. Schopenhauer valued solitude not as loneliness, but as a crucible for self-discovery and peace. When you withdraw from external demands, social media, constant conversation, relentless activity, you create space for the silent witness within. To inhabit solitude effectively, design daily retreats of quiet. Turn off notifications, close the door, and sit without agenda. Let your mind settle into the gaps between thoughts. Without external stimulation, you encounter the raw sensations of your being, restlessness, longing, calm, and learn to observe them without immediate reaction. Over time, these moments become refuges where you can rest from the will's incessant demands. You discover that life's value is not measured by accomplishments or acquisitions, but by the depth of your presence. Solitude refines your capacity for reflection, creativity, and genuine contentment. Embrace solitude not as punishment but as privilege, a chance to recharge your spirit, to listen to your own heart, and to cultivate equanimity. In its quiet embrace, the will's noise loses its urgency, and you stand free to choose when to engage the world and when to remain at peace within yourself. Ascetic practices to weaken the will: asceticism, intentional simplification, and self-denial, strikes at the heart of the will's cravings. Schopenhauer advocated ascetic practices not for moral glory, but as a practical means to blunt desire's edge. When you deliberately experience discomfort, fasting, cold exposure, sensory reduction, you prove to the will that you can endure without gratifying every impulse. Begin with minimalism in daily life. Reduce your possessions, limit digital consumption, pare down your wardrobe. Each item you release is a victory over craving. Next, incorporate voluntary hardships. Skip a meal, walk barefoot in cool grass, rest without entertainment. Notice the initial resistance, then the widening space of calm that follows. Ascetic practice trains you to distinguish essential needs, sustenance, shelter, rest, from the will's manufactured urgencies. You build resilience, realizing that desire is not a command, but an invitation you may decline. The will deprived of constant indulgence grows quieter. You reclaim freedom, no longer complicit in your own enslavement. Through disciplined asceticism, you learn that life's richness lies not in endless satisfaction, but in the clarity born of restraint. The will to live weakens its tyranny, and in its place emerges a steadier, more contented self, rooted in simplicity, not in ceaseless craving. Transcendence through art and music. Art and music stand as Schopenhauer's exalted escape routes from the tyranny of the will. When you stand before a sublime painting or lose yourself in the swells of a profound symphony, you enter a realm where craving quiets and pure perception reigns. In those moments, you are neither the artist nor the audience. You are the silent witness to beauty that exists independently of your desires. This aesthetic rapture suspends the will's endless demands and grants you a fleeting taste of freedom. To cultivate transcendence, seek out works that move you: stoning landscapes, turbulent sonatas, minimalist compositions that strip emotion to its essence. Approach them not as a consumer seeking pleasure, but as a pilgrim yearning for stillness. Set aside expectations. Do not ask, will this make me feel good? Instead ask, will this let me be without wanting? Sit with the piece. Let its form, color, harmony, or dissonance wash over you. Notice how the mind's chatter softens, how the body relaxes, how even sorrow can feel strangely luminous in the glow of creation. Don't confine this to museums or concert halls. Embrace creative acts yourself. Sketch a line, hum a tune, shape clay with your hands. In creating, you enter the same contemplative space. Your will shifts from grasping to expressing, from demanding to manifesting. The act of bringing forth beauty becomes a dialogue with the will, showing it that existence need not be a fight, but a dance. Regular engagement with art and music fashions a sanctuary in your psyche. You learn that the will's roar can be met with the quiet power of form and sound. Each encounter becomes a proof point. Suffering is neither abolished nor ignored, but transformed into moments of shared transcendence. In these aesthetic interludes, you remember that life's purpose extends beyond mere survival. It includes the sacred encounter with beauty that stands timeless against the flux of desire. Achieving equanimity by renouncing the will. Schopenhauer's ultimate cure for misery is the radical renunciation of the will, a voluntary relinquishment of craving that cultivates an unshakable equanimity. This renunciation does not demand annihilation of the self, but the quieting of the self's tyrannical voice. By consciously ceasing to feed desires, you withdraw the fuel from the ceaseless engine of suffering. Begin this practice in small, deliberate steps. Choose one desire to renounce, perhaps the need for constant entertainment, the habit of judging others, or the compulsion to check your phone. For one full day, refuse to indulge that urge. Notice the initial surge of discomfort, the gnawing emptiness, the restless energy, and meet it with steady presence. Observe how the will lashes out, demanding relief, and gently remind yourself, I am not at its mercy. As you accumulate these acts of renunciation, you build a reservoir of inner calm. You learn that craving is a habit, not an imperative. The mind's equilibrium grows stronger than the ripples of desire. Over time, extend renunciation to larger spheres. Relinquish ambition for recognition. Release attachment to a fixed identity. Let go of the fear-driven need to control outcomes. Each act of surrender deepens your capacity for serene acceptance. This equanimity is not passivity. It is a dynamic stability, an ability to stand firm amid life's storms. You still act, create, and engage the world, but without the frantic desperation that formerly propelled you. Your choices become measured rather than reflexive, guided by insight rather than impulse. You become the ocean. While waves may rise and fall, the depth remains undisturbed. Renouncing the will unveils a freedom greater than any fulfillment of desire. It transforms suffering from an endless chain into a transitory phenomenon. You no longer ask, "How can I escape this pain?" but "How can I meet this moment with unshaken composure?" In that shift, you discover Schopenhauer's highest promise, a life where the will's dominion fades and the steadfast calm of equanimity becomes your truest companion.